Okay, we are live. I want to welcome all of you to the show. Um, Today we're going to talk about two topics. This is going to be one live stream. Hopefully it won't take way too long. The other topic will be a little more religion focused, but I don't know if it will be that much because I think unfortunately, people have now taken to a view that politics completely supersedes religion. And I know for some people it is a little more important, but it shouldn't be important to the degree that actual religion becomes completely attached to politics. So that'll be the second stream. And, this one, we're talking about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. And a couple of days ago, I guess Monday I did or Tuesday night, Tuesday morning, I did a video where I predicted that Ocasio-Cortez would probably not win the race for New York congressional candidate for, I think, the 14th district to be the nominee for the Democratic Party. But I said for what it's worth, she worked harder, and it would probably be better for the Democrats as an organization if somebody like her won, as opposed to somebody like her opponent, Joe Crowley, who represents the status quo. And for some people are so stuck in this concept that the status quo is at least better than what they're used to, that they can't understand exactly why anybody would want to vote for Ocasio-Cortez. And in essence, we're seeing people with these agendas who are, they're incapable of understanding any of that. Now, let me be clear here. I would never support Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's platform. I think that, to be honest with you, she demonstrates, the type of economic fanaticism that I oppose. The same thing I see people who are now, they're the hardcore libertarian open borders people saying, oh, we support the Koch brothers' effort to advertise and fight against the tariff thing. Well, I'm sorry to tell you, but unfortunately, one of the reasons that the tariffs are happening is because of the Koch brothers, their policies over the years, supporting people that supported over what do you call it, the outsourcing of jobs, supporting those people. So you're trying to say that the Koch brothers are not people that I demonize on a daily basis, but for them to now come to people and say, oh, this is going to be the ruination of our economy. Well, for many people, the economy wasn't working for them anyway, the way that you wanted it to work. So we're going to be dealing with a lot of these people who are taking the wrong message from the Ocasio-Cortez victory. And I'm speaking as somebody who I did notice her candidacy a bit, not as much as some of the people who are further on the left. And I said, well, I didn't give her the advantage to win, but I said that, my belief is that Crowley would probably, using establishment clout, be able to do that. Now, I've admitted I was wrong about that. And I've also said that if people want to take the proper conclusion from this, they have to look at what they've been doing wrong and not go suddenly do these personal attacks against her, which are, to be honest with you, those are motivated more by jealousy of her success. Okay, it's irrelevant to the fact that she is somebody whose policies would be ridiculous failures. All of the policies that she advocates are pretty much those of people who have never had to deal with, maintaining a massive organization. Somebody who's been in a very big, executive post or anything. She is the the poster child of the young socialist left, people who they get into politics at a very young age. By the way, for those of you that think that I'm being how hyperbolic about this. Mark my words, the Debbie Wasserman Schultz got into politics when she was 22. And look what it turned her into. So, yes, you see this sweet-faced person, Ocasio-Cortez. She's 28 years old. She's probably going to be a member of Congress. Well, in the next few years, we're going to have to see whether it changes her or not. And I hope for the sake of her constituents that, at least she remains receptive to their concerns, because in the end, that's her job as a congressional representative. I do like her anti-war stance, though. So let me see here if anybody's tuned in yet. We have John Sislowski. What's up, buddy? So all I'm trying to say here is that we have an issue with people who are taking the wrong conclusion from something that just happened, and I'm making it very clear that, first of all, I wouldn't support her, but I think people who voted for her knew what they wanted, and they want somebody who's receptive to them. So first, we're going to look at her opponent, Joe Crowley, and how he managed to fuck up the race.
Its eye on the next election, and as we get closer to the 2018 midterms, many are predicting a blue wave with Democrats taking back the House and possibly the Senate. Joining us now, New York Congressman Joe Crowley, chair of the House Democratic Caucus, and the subject of growing chatter among Democrats as a possible replacement for Nancy Pelosi after the election. He's not going to like me saying that. Congressman, welcome back to Fox News Sunday.
Thanks, Chris.
Now he probably really doesn't like him saying that.
You just heard Larry Kudlow. What do you think of his arguments for potentially using tariffs against China? And if not that, how do you propose we stop their unfair trading practices?
Well, Chris, I'm also a member of the Ways and Means Committee, and so I do recognize that there's a role for tariffs in our economy. But I think what really has been created is a great deal more chaos. People really don't know what the president's plan or what Mr. Kudlow's plan is as it relates to China. And the trade war that has now begun, or at least the initial start of that has begun. And I think that's left a lot of Americans with uncertainty about what this means for them.
What should they do? If you're not going to use tariffs, how do you stop the unfair trade practices, the theft of intellectual property?
Well, first of all, let me just say for the record that when it came to the issue of China, I did not vote for normal trade with China. I believe they were not economically nor politically mature enough to be dealing with this on the same par. And having said that, I think that's panned out to be true. But I do think we have to do this in a much more calculated way and with more of a plan. Let's have an understanding of what the ultimate goal is here. Is the goal...
This is why he lost. You can see he has a stutter whenever he gets to a very important issue. The question was, what do you propose doing? And then he starts off with, well, I want to make clear that, first of all, I didn't want them to become a full trade partner. And now I want a more mature and more nuanced and more deliberate. No. Say what your fucking plan is.
To raise the price of products here in the United States or to lower the price of agricultural products here in the United States? What is the overall goal here? Because that's what some of the effect may very well be if China retaliates in this war. And where's it ultimately going? That's what we don't understand about this.
Donald Trump won the presidency because he convinced a lot of voters, including a lot of Democratic voters in the industrial heartland, that he had a better idea for how to build the economy, how to get them jobs than Hillary Clinton did. Now Democrats are going into the 2018 midterms with what they call a better deal. Here is Nancy Pelosi on that.
All right, this is I think one of the better people that is on the media. Chris Wallace, I think, is one of the better interviewers. He's a little more aggressive than other people, and Even though I don't watch Fox News anymore. I picked this one because it's 10 minutes long. You get this. I don't know if we'll see the whole thing, but he really goes after what exactly is it you do here? As if you've ever seen what do you call it? That movie, The Office Space.
Democrats are offering a better deal, better jobs, better wages, a better future. A better deal is founded on strong values that we share, strong values fueled by fresh ideas.
Forgive me, Congressman, but that sounds like standard Democratic boilerplate. So give me one fresh idea that Democrats are offering voters for November.
Fresh idea? First of all, Chris, Donald Trump did not win by a lot of Democratic votes in the Midwest. It was fractions of a vote that actually are responsible for being president of the United States today. But what I think one great fresh idea is a real infrastructure package for the American people. What the president has offered, a 20-80 plan, 20% from the federal government, 80% from local governments, is just not going to wash. It's not going to work. What Democrats are proposing is really an 80-20 plan or a 75-25 plan where the federal government comes up with the resources for 80% and works with local governments to put America back to work and invest in American infrastructure and invest in America. That's jobs. That's a bridge to the new economy. That's giving people the opportunity to put their kids through college, to afford health care with a real job. That's the kind of message that Democrats are talking about.
But let's look at the Trump record on the economy, which obviously you agree is going to be the key issue in November. Employers are adding an average of 202,000 jobs a month this year. The unemployment rate has been 4.1% for 6 straight months. That's the lowest level in 17 years. And wages are up 2.7%, the highest rate in almost 9 years. Congressman, a solid majority of Americans, according to the polls, feel good about the Trump.
Okay, I want to say something here. I am not a fan of Fox News, but I do think that Chris Wallace, I'm not gonna brown nose him the whole time here because there's certain times I don't like him, but this is the way to do an interview. Okay, when you do an interview, you throw out stats or whatever. He was ready to go. I think on every network, well, MSNBC has a bunch of duds, but on CNN you have Jake Tapper, who is a good interviewer. Whatever else you want to say about him. Wolf Blitzer is, I guess, a passable guy. You need to have somebody who is capable of really thinking on their feet. And Wallace is probably the most capable one on Fox News, and he is a liberal on Fox News. He's not a conservative. He is a registered Democrat. I don't know if that would make him, for example, party registration, I think doesn't mean much anymore. There's a lot of people talking about how Bob Mueller is a registered Republican, as if that means anything in Washington, D.C.
Economy.
Show me how in any of those statistics they differed from any month that President Obama was president of the United States.
Well, I just said that the 4.1% is the lowest level in 17 years.
It had been moving on a downward trend.
But it wasn't
So he says, show me how any of those statistics was different under Obama. And he says, well, of course, the low unemployment was the lowest in 17 years. By the way, under Barack Obama, another thing, I don't know if Chris Wallace mentions it later or if he mentions it at all. A lot of those jobs that were created, and this was admitted by Donna Brazile in an email revealed by WikiLeaks, a lot of those jobs that were created were part-time or low-wage jobs, part-time or minimum wage, temporary jobs, things like that.
4.1%. Wage growth wasn't up.
Where was it when President Bush left office?
President Bush or President Obama?
President Bush, when he left office and President Obama became president.
Well, I understand. There was a recession.
So and Democrats really moved us towards this job growth, toward this sustained economy that we're seeing today.
Are you saying that the president deserves no?
I didn't say that.
I'm asking you.
What I'm suggesting is that I believe that what this is based on is a false premise. The notion of this tax cut is going to somehow help the American people in the long run, I think, is a scam. I think what they've done is in their desperate need to pass anything by the end of the year, they ran through a bill without fully really understanding what was in the bill. It was done in a very, very highly partisan way. And I think in the end, it's the average worker, the middle class in this country is going to suffer because of the result of that tax cut bill.
Let's turn to another subject, immigration. The president has ordered the deployment of up to 4,000 members of the National Guard to the southern border. And the fact is, more people are attempting to cross the border illegally. Just take a look at these statistics. In March of 2017.
Sorry, guys, this is probably me because I am playing with some windows here. I'm going to have to reload this.
Washington always has a
statistics based on very, very high
guard to the
oh boy, whatever. Shit. See here. Okay. I don't know what the fuck it's doing.
Washington always has its eye on the next election.
That damn net neutrality. I should have supported it, right? Carlos is going to watch later.
Take a look at
I guess you were right. The
March
net neutrality really bit me in my
16,000 people were caught at the border. That number tripled last month, March of 2018, to more than 50,000. Don't we need to stop the surge?
I think what we need is comprehensive immigration reform. We've been talking about this for decades, and we just haven't seen it happen, not since 1986. What I think is interesting, go back to 1986.
So how ironic that he's talking about comprehensive immigration reform, but the Democrats don't want to pass it. In fact, I think it was 2 days ago that the moderate Republicans in the House did propose a comprehensive immigration reform bill. The Democrats did not vote for it. Most of the conservative Republicans didn't vote for it. And we're probably not going to get it. And this is an area where I've always been kind of, on certain issues I'm anti-immigration. But if the country, if, for example, they want to do an amnesty for some of these DACA people, and it's negotiated, and my term would be, you impose a heavy fine on them, and you tell them to pay it back. And I think there would be a sizable portion that would say, I'm not paying any fine, I'm going back to El Salvador or something. And that would be the terms. But no, nobody's going to support that idea, even though it makes total sense. You came here, you benefited off of a system of healthcare and education that none of your parents or you contributed to. Possibly, some of you have drawn on Social Security. I don't know if, that's a good question, whether illegal immigrants can benefit from Social Security. Well, some of them do. Or, some people, they actually use fake identities. They use fake IDs. So instead, people want to beat around the bush and say, oh, you're being mean to people that came here and they don't know any other country. Well, they should get to know this country and know that this country is going broke and we're tired of it. And Donald Trump, for all of his big military spending, which I am against, he was talking about today, and for all of his, massive deficit running, he's the only person talking about reining in spending. And I think that we need to start a movement to get him to actually cut spending. Larry Gerke says, my favorite clip of Tucker Carlson was when Jon Stewart ripped him a new asshole on Crossfire back in the days of the Idiot W, and I don't even like Jon Stewart. Well, no, I don't think that he really did rip him a new asshole, because Jon Stewart is, I saw that clip, and the fact of the matter is that they weren't ripping an asshole to the Democrats who were voting with Jon Stewart at the time. If the anti-war crowd of the 2000s had been really anti-war, they would have supported Ralph Nader, and they never did. They basically left him out to dry. Instead, they supported John Kerry, who was just as much of a part of getting us into the Iraq War as George W. Bush was. So I don't want to hear anybody, oh, Jon Stewart ripped him a new asshole. He didn't rip anybody a new asshole. Jon Stewart is retired now, and basically he's in the past. He's one of those people. He's the same as Barack Obama, that people thought, oh, he was the voice of sanity in our country. Well, if he was such a voice of sanity, how come he didn't? He's like Captain Captain Hindsight from South Park. Oh, we shouldn't have done that the way that, that was a bad idea. Well, thank you. I think we know that now.
Where you saw comprehensive immigration reform and comprehensive tax reform done in a bipartisan way. And why it was long-lasting is because it was done both Democrats and Republicans coming together. Here we have a very partisan approach to this. The president talks about building a wall, that Mexico was going to pay for it. Now he's putting troops down at the border, a very provocative move. But at the same time, it's not really solving the problem.
But wait, you say it's a very provocative move. Barack Obama put 1,800 troops at the border.
It was to some degree provocative, but not in the same breath that this president has done with the verbiage and the language that our president.
So again, he's saying, well, when our guy did it, it was okay because it wasn't as provocative. But when this guy does it, it is provocative. And what about the fact that you had other presidents in the past who did want an immigration wall, who did want to deport illegal immigrants? My show is on Comedy Central between two cartoon shows. I don't remember that line from that. Sorry, Larry.
Is used towards immigrants in this nation is really, it's abhorrent to me, quite frankly. It's not representative of who we are as a nation. So this president making this move is different from any other president doing it, quite frankly.
Let's turn to the mid.
No, it's not, because the fact is you can run clips. And we're not going to do it today because this is more about Crowley and Ocasio-Cortez. But you have Bill Clinton here. Bill Clinton, illegal immigration. Let's just do it. I think it's a short clip. So, of course, you have Bill Clinton, the false. They want to defend anything that he did, even though he was. I know that Rachel Maddow, for example, said that Bill Clinton was the best Republican president in history.
Bill Clinton said this.
All Americans, not only in the states most heavily affected, but in every place in this country, are rightly disturbed by the large numbers of illegal aliens entering our country. The jobs they hold might otherwise be held by citizens or legal immigrants. The public service they use impose burdens on our taxpayers. That's why our administration has moved aggressively to secure our borders more, by hiring a record number of new border guards, by deporting twice as many criminal aliens as ever before, by cracking down on illegal hiring, by barring welfare benefits to illegal aliens.
Okay, that was 1995. President Clinton at the State of the Union address, sounding very much like President Trump. Now, with the failure of health reform, some say immigration may be Mr. Trump's biggest victory this year. Midterms. President Trump says that your party is vulnerable in November. Here he is.
Democrats haven't learned. They still think the loyal citizens who care about jobs and borders and security are deplorable.
How confident are you that Democrats will win in November and take back control of the House?
We're a long way from November. Let's be clear about that. But I'm confident that the American people want to bring balance back to the United States government. What they see right now is Republicans in charge of the presidency, the Senate, the House, and some would argue the Supreme Court. Every branch of government seems to be controlled in some way or facet by Republicans.
But I mean, forgive me, that was what voters decided.
Well, look, they have an opportunity here to change course and correction. That's the beauty of our democracy. The House of Representatives, every member of the House of Representatives is up for election this year.
Change course and correction to what? Change course and correction to, giving little specifics or almost no specifics on what you actually want. There's no correction of course if you don't have a course to go to.
year and a third of the Senate, so that people have the opportunity to bring that balance back. We know that the first midterm election of an incumbent president, on average, sees 40 seats swing in the opposite direction. That's not going to happen on its own. Democrats are not going to win that back just simply by being against President Trump. We need to be for, and as I mentioned before, our economic policies, our better deal, and his raw deal are going to become very clear to the American people.
All right. In more than a third of House Republican or House races, Republicans running for those seats have run ads that go after Nancy Pelosi. Here's an example from the recent special election in Pennsylvania 18.
Connor Lamb is a Pelosi liberal. His values aren't our values.
Now, that Democrat, Connor Lamb, won, but one of the ways in which he won was that he promised not to support Nancy Pelosi if Democrats take the House and she's up for Speaker again. Is Nancy Pelosi a liability for Democrats in this campaign?
I think it's more reflective of the fact that Republicans are bankrupt on ideas. They don't have anything else to offer except to go after Nancy Pelosi to win elections. If they think that's a winning strategy, they're completely mistaken and wrong. It's not the winning strategy.
I mean, forgive me, but Connor Lamb apparently thought it was an issue because he dumped Nancy Pelosi.
Connor Lamb won because he ran a local election. He talked about the cuts that the Republicans were attempting to make and to privatize Social Security. He talked about...
Okay, what he's essentially said is that on a national level, the Democrat, he said something that's absolutely true that he ended up ignoring, which is that if you don't look at the concerns of your local constituents, you're going to lose your congressional race. And lo and behold, what happened?
What effect the federal government has on local politics, on people's lives, and that's why he won that election, not because of Nancy Pelosi.
If Democrats win the House in November, will you run either to replace Nancy Pelosi if she steps down or against her if she doesn't?
Well, on the first portion of that, I would wait and see just what would happen in terms of that if Nancy Pelosi decided not to run. But if Nancy Pelosi stays, I don't see a scenario by which I would challenge her for that position.
Do you want to be Speaker?
Look, I am focused right now on winning back the House of Representatives, be in the majority, to be the chair of the Democratic.
See, this is the person that people thought would be the next Speaker of the House, but he clearly, in order to be a real leader that people can believe in, I'm not saying in the House of Representatives, because obviously Paul Ryan is not a leader. He's basically an administrator. I've talked a number of times. I've written in a number of pieces on the Hard News Network that there's a difference between a leader and an administrator. A leader has to project a vision for people to believe in and to follow. An administrator simply has to implement that vision, implement certain policies that other people decide upon. That's why there's a difference between a school board and a superintendent. The superintendent, you can talk about him being a real leader. In many cases, they're only an administrator. They just implement what the school board tells them to do.
Democratic caucus in the majority. I'm doing that job right now. I want to be the best chair of the Democratic caucus I possibly can be, help my colleagues get reelected, and help win back seats for the House Democratic caucus. That's my focus and goal. That's the focus and goal of the entire Democratic leadership. We are of one mind, Chris, and that is we want to win back the House. That's goal one and the only goal right now.
One last question in this. One top Democrat was quoted as saying that at age 56, which you are now, that you are a spring chicken by congressional standards.
Well, I've had others say that I'm not such a spring chicken after all. Look, at the end of the day, we have a very vibrant Democratic caucus. We have some incredibly talented young people. I think of people who are running today like Mikey Sherrill. She was a Navy grad. She's running for office in New Jersey. I think of Joe Neguse, who's running in Colorado. I think of Brendan Kelly. Some great people who are running all around this country. And we're going to be becoming more vibrant as a Democratic caucus. So I think we have nothing to look forward to but good days ahead of us.
Congressman Crowley, thank you. Thanks for coming in today. Please come back, sir.
I'm happy to come back. Thank you.
Okay, so contrast that with this, and you tell me if it makes sense that somebody who won and who lost.
Women like me aren't supposed to run for office. I wasn't born to a wealthy or powerful family. Mother from Puerto Rico, dad from the South Bronx. I was born in a place where your zip code determines your destiny. My name is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. I'm an educator, an organizer, a working-class New Yorker. I've worked with expectant mothers, I've waited tables and led classrooms. And going into politics wasn't in the plan. But after 20 years of the same representation, we have to ask, who has...
They actually use that clip, and well, you know what? Let me play the video out. I don't want to ruin the rest of the video.
New York been changing for? Every day gets harder for working families like mine to get by. The rent gets higher, healthcare covers less, and our income stays the same. It's clear that these changes haven't been for us, and we deserve a champion. It's time to fight for a New York that working families can afford. That's why I'm running for Congress. This race is about people versus money. We've got people, they've got money. It's time we acknowledge that not all Democrats are the same. That a Democrat who takes corporate money, profits off foreclosure, doesn't live here, doesn't send his kids to our schools.
They had to throw in the Muslim. See?
Profits off foreclosure, doesn't live here, doesn't send his kids to our schools, doesn't drink our water or breathe our air, cannot possibly represent us. What the Bronx and Queens needs is Medicare for all, tuition-free public college, a federal jobs guarantee, and criminal justice reform. We can do it now. It doesn't take 100 years to do this. It takes political courage. A New York for the many is possible. It's time for one of us. Vote for Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez on June 26th.
So, I'm seeing all these comments here. First of all, Larry seems to, for some reason, think I give a shit about that Jon Stewart Comedy Central thing where he alleged, or I think it was on CNN when Tucker Carlson was on, and Jon Stewart apparently kicked his ass or something. Listen, Tucker Carlson was a piece of shit back in the 2000s, and he's completely revamped his entire life. And nowadays, he's the only anti-war person on Fox News. He's the only person who opposed the Syria bombing. He's the only person questioning a lot of the policies of the neocon right within the Republican Party. So for people to say, "Oh, Jon Stewart handed him his ass" or whatever, well, Jon Stewart today doesn't mean anything. And so, okay, I'll grant you that back in 2007 or whenever this happened, Jon Stewart won the night. But over the long period, Jon Stewart has become irrelevant. He had to retire at the twilight stage of the Obama administration because, to be honest with you, he'd already accomplished everything he was going to accomplish. There was no outside of actually running for an election, Jon Stewart had accomplished everything he was going to accomplish and had never, other than that, the Daily Show, that's one of the reasons that politics is so or comedy is so politicized now, because there's 6 or 7 shows that basically mirror Jon Stewart's Daily Show. You now even have one on Netflix with Michelle Wolf. So he is the reason, one of the reasons that we are at this point. And Cucker is king. All right, I'm going to drop the issue. I think we're just going to have to agree to disagree on that, Larry. So I see some other people saying hasn't worked a day in her life, community organizing. You don't understand, okay? You all are reading the same things into this that I am, as people who would never vote for this person. But you have to take into account who she's running against. It's the same type of campaign that Cynthia Nixon is doing against Andrew. I was about to say Mario, but Andrew Cuomo. Andrew Cuomo is the same type of politician that this Joe Crowley is, and if New Yorkers are not careful, they're going to end up with Cynthia Nixon as their governor, and she's going to turn the state into, basically a Jell-O mold. It's going to fall apart. A plate of Jell-O. I guess it won't be the mold. The mold is solid. But what I'm trying to say here is that people are missing the point on how to address this person. Okay? Ocasio-Cortez won because the fucking Republican neocons have never, ever focused on how to actually talk to people who need more of a chance in life in urban areas. Okay, if you want to blame anybody on this, on the fact that she is 98% likely to be in the House this fall, which wouldn't be the worst thing in the world because, in all honesty, it's a House seat. Okay, there's already some idiots in the House already. You have that moron Sheila Jackson Lee from Texas. You have that absolute mental midget from what state is she from? Let's not even talk about Maxine Waters from California. Let's talk about Adam Schiff. You have idiots in the House. You have that that idiot Adam Swalwell. Okay, you have a lot of people who are complete morons in the fucking House of Representatives, and you think that this is going to be a problem that's beyond what they've been doing? The Republican Party is full of unimaginative losers. Losers. Mr. Wazo, welcome. So we have Pinochet saying, we know she's anti-establishment, but the voters have no idea what they're getting. New York will become little Venezuela. Well, unfortunately, I think you're making the same point as the New York Post is trying to make. Here's a one-word piece of advice for America's growing socialist left, Venezuela. I want you guys to understand something very clear that I've been understanding for, for the past few weeks, probably even longer. American socialists, American progressives don't give a fuck about the people of Venezuela. They never will. They're the so-called party of compassion. Okay, and they are ignoring one of the biggest humanitarian crises in the world that wasn't even caused by a war. It wasn't even most of it wasn't caused by any natural disaster, although they always blame a drought. Funny how, I've never seen a drought ruin the oil industry. Usually, I thought droughts have to do with rainwater and the water supply. So instead of actually dealing with the fact that conservatism, or even let's be honest, libertarianism has never, ever tried to talk to people who need the actual, they need to be exposed to an alternate philosophy. Instead, the Republicans for decades decided the borough of Queens, where she won, and the borough of the Bronx, we'll let them go. We're going to gerrymander. We're going to let the Democrats take that race every single time. We're going to abandon those people to the incompetence of somebody like Joe Crowley, and it will work out because they'll always continue electing these idiots like him. And to be honest with you, through that clip, I am not surprised that he lost, and he was very lucky he survived for this long. Loomer is an attention whore. What prompted that? Let's see here. Mad Maxine. Yeah, I don't know if that assault charge is going to hold because, I don't know if that qualifies as assault. I think that's on the border. You're yelling, I feel unsafe here. No, I'm tired of this, okay? And Pinochet, you have to realize what the whole problem is, because we can talk all the time about helicopters. We can talk about the fact that, these people would be starving their own mothers in order to create equality. But the fact of the matter is that the people, not the Republicans, not the Libertarians, nobody sent somebody to Queens. Nobody recruited somebody in Queens to be a challenge to this, and therefore this woman is going to be in the House. And who's to blame for that? Who's to blame for that? Well, the absence of an alternative. So when people have the absence of an alternative, what's one of the things that they'll go for? The only alternative they have left, voting for a socialist. And Larry Gerke said it right, and I think Larry Gerke deserves credit for it. I am, as much as I disagree with Ocasio-Cortez, I think it's time to give the credit due and say at least she got rid of that fraud, that absolute clown, Joe Crowley, because it's over for him. It's over for these people. The complacency here, where they say, well, who else are you going to vote for? Are you going to vote for a Republican? Well, people voted for somebody else this time. They voted for this Democratic socialist. And then you have people with even bigger, blind spots. People who are so fucking dumb that they misunderstand everything about it. Well, one of the groups that I think is really misunderstanding what happened here are the pro-Israel people, and I've seen endless panicked editorials about how this is the worst, and she's a BDS person, and she's against the. She said something during the Gaza thing. I want you to understand something. Nobody in Queens, nobody in the Bronx voted for this woman because of Gaza. They voted for, except maybe some of the Palestinians in Gaza, in Queens, but nobody voted for her because of that. They voted for her because she presents an alternate vision as opposed to what they've been getting. And you, the frauds, the people who are endlessly married to the same talking points year after year that don't address economic development, that don't address getting people jobs, that don't address fixing the broken education system, that don't address taking on big pharma, that don't address legalizing drugs and ending the war on drugs, that don't address issues of immigration reform. And by the way, that would include people who, saying you're going to build a wall is addressing it, but not proposing a vision is not addressing it. So I'm sorry, guys, but fuck socialism. I can say fuck socialism here all day, and I will. And I will say fuck socialism, but fuck socialism is not an answer to this, okay? What you need to do is start to think, what are we for? Because fuck socialism means what we're against. What I'm for is exactly what our country was founded on, granting the most liberties to people to develop and achieve the successes that they desire. Okay, the pursuit of happiness. What the hell does that even mean? What the hell does that even mean? It does not mean handing people the thing. If you hand people what they want, that is not the pursuit of happiness, because it's the reception of happiness from somebody else. And believe me, when you have a borough like Queens or the Bronx, where people are already receiving a lot of government benefits, apparently that didn't make them happy enough. Okay, when you have the city of New York, which has a population of as much as 600,000 people on public housing that is falling apart and decrepit, and the mayor of the city, who is, I believe he's actually allied with Ocasio-Cortez, Bill de Blasio. And his answer to that is to basically cover for his housing commissioner until eventually he couldn't cover for her anymore and she resigned. Okay, they've given all that they can, but they will always promise more. Okay, then Mayor de Blasio went down to the Mexican border this week, and my Hillary coughs are back. That's how bad this socialism is killing me. He went down to the border. He says, I want to abolish ICE. You have 600,000 people in your city living on public housing. You have a lot of undocumented immigrants and homeless people who were born here in the country living in your city, and you're going to go down to the border and ask for more? What are you? This is the problem. We have to start going on the offensive and saying it's you, the Democrats, who have created this phenomenon, and you have proposed things for years that will just hand more and more, and you've fed this addiction to more benefits. And what's this created? It's created housing developments that are falling apart. So what's the solution that they propose, the Democrats? To knock them down and build another one. To basically continue this string of nonsense where you think that people will become happy because you give them things that they don't know how to maintain. Okay, when you make something public, let me tell you something. This is the most replace your Robitussin in your bong water. It's a nice one, Larry Gerke. You tripped me up. I think this is seasonal because for about 4 months I didn't have this. Okay, this is what I'm trying to say. If something is everyone's, it's no one's. If something belongs to everyone, it belongs to no one. You don't care about the fact that all of those tanks and all of those aircraft that are belonging to our military, who do they technically belong to? They belong to us, but yet you can't access it. You can't go and ride a tank. It's true. But that's public. So public housing, is it public? I mean, we technically all own it, right? I don't know if Mr. Wazo is from here, but I know that Pinochet is from the United States, and Jeff is from the United States, and Larry Gerke is from the United States. Can you walk into a public housing complex and use it? No. So it's really not public housing. What it really means is that the government has created basically 24-hour cubicles to house people that they want to continue to make poor, and they don't have an answer for what to do with them. That's what public housing is. And my proposal would be to gradually privatize those public housing establishments by selling the people, instead of charging them rent, you basically make them rent to own. So you end up charging them membership fees and privatizing it, and it would end up being like a bungalow development. You know, basically the same as a gated community. Imagine that poor people can have the same rights as rich people to the housing that they have, okay? That's not going to be done through public housing. But it will be done if you continue to let people like this, people like Ocasio-Cortez, sorry, the screen's flipped. People like Ocasio-Cortez, they're proposing the same type of crap that the regular Democrats are doing. They're just doing a better job, and they're taking advantage of the failure of the people that came before them. So I don't want to hear any crap anymore about people saying, well, oh my God, a socialist is going to get in the fucking government. The government has been socialist for years, and you didn't care. For years, and you don't give a fuck. None of you. Mr. Wazo is from Arizona. There's a lot of cool people in Arizona, by the way. I have a few people on my Discord from there. By the way, if anybody wants to join the Discord, I know Pinochet did, and then he never shared anything on it. So that's not quite how it works, buddy. Let me see. I actually have a message here from one. Yeah, I might be on a stream later with Mad Dodge. But yeah, let me share this link. Okay, you guys can join my Discord, and we can screw around all the time except for Saturday and Friday night because I observe the Sabbath. But you know, then we wonder why. We wonder why people like this take control. Listen, the Democratic Party has sold people on socialism for decades without calling it socialism. And then what do they end up giving them? You know, cheaper Keynesian corporatism. And that's what they end up giving them. And then people want the real socialism because they're so addicted to the government benefits that they are given that they want more. Larry Gerke says, Soviet Socialist Republic of California stand here. Larry's been in top form today. And even where I disagree, he's made some great points. And I want people to finally start to get their heads out of their asses. And I think Larry's for the life of me, I think Larry is one of the few people that gets it. That you can't start asking why are people picking socialism? Don't they know it doesn't work? They don't give a shit. People could be starving, and the left, the progressives, don't give a fuck about the actual people starving in other countries unless it so to speak fits their narrative. Now, I've always made the point that the reason that I cover Venezuela is not necessarily because of any compassion. Okay, of course, I don't believe that people should be suffering from hunger and from scarcity and from basically being bullied at their own job or being fired because they don't vote for somebody. That goes without saying. I don't believe in all that stuff. But that happens in other places besides Venezuela. But the fact of the matter is that Venezuela is the biggest humanitarian crisis in living memory that was not caused by a war or by a natural disaster. I didn't know Bold was a Jew. Well, I guess you're in for a rude awakening here. Sorry. So, sorry, man. By the way, if you guys want to watch a funny video, Tommy Sotomayor has a video from yesterday where he finds out that Dave Rubin is gay, and he really freaks out. And it's pretty funny. I would do that if I had, because there's so many topics I want to talk about that I have to pick and choose sometimes. So here's some of the people missing the boat. The Jewish National Syndicate, the Jewish News Syndicate. Okay, if you want to talk about how Jews, liberal Jews for years, and this is coming up in the next segment, have completely misunderstood everything. They've misunderstood everything about what motivates people to vote, because they have said, okay, here it is, did not hinge on her declaring that Israel was perpetrating a massacre in Gaza and her call for members of the party to join in denouncing the Jewish state. So he says the correct thing here, but he reaches the wrong conclusion. Ocasio-Cortez's victory is one more indication of how Democrats are changing, and anti-Israel sentiments are, as she boasted in an interview with Glenn Greenwald, no hindrance in gaining the support of Democrats, including many Jews these days. What's driving this trend? Put it down to the way every aspect of American politics has become radicalized in the age of Trump. Republicans are prepared to tolerate U.S. President Donald Trump's egregious statements and tweets in exchange for conservative policies and judges. Do a profile so I can see the nose. Well, I mean, I can't. Here. Is that... I mean... Does that work? What do you want from me? Do you want to see my circumcision too? Well, they also like him because they see him as willing to fight the left without being constrained by notions of fair play or civility. At the same time, Democrats seem to think that the only rational response to Trump is to get behind radicals who also won't pull their punches or behave in a civil manner. This has nothing to do with why she won. She won because she is a more communicative person than Joe Crowley. Joe Crowley was a disgrace. You saw the video. He's a weaseling loser. Okay, and then they go through all these other people who credible people who do hate Jews. Paul Nealon and Patrick Little or whatever. And they wanted, Corey Stewart, blah, blah, blah. Then they go to Leslie Coburn, co-founder of an anti-Israel conspiracy creed, is not only being helped by National Democrats, she's actually been given a decent chance to win the Charlottesville district, currently held by a Republican. In Minnesota, a virulent critic of Israel and former Louis Farrakhan supporter like Representative Keith Ellison is expected to be replaced by fellow Democrat Ilhan Omar, who has referred to in the past to Israel as having hypnotized the world into ignoring the evil doings of the Jewish state. So I want to tell you what the problem is with this. So in a certain sense, he makes the right call, because he says that it did not hinge on her declaring that Israel was perpetrating a massacre in Gaza, and her call for members of the party to join in denouncing the Jewish state. That the reason, but then he goes off into the deep end and says, "Oh, but there are a lot of people who do that." It doesn't matter. It does not matter. Nobody gives a shit, because ultimately, people want representation that is representative, and the Democratic Party and the Republican Party don't represent the people of her district. They don't represent the people of Queens and the Bronx. Tony Weiner showed all his. I think he showed it. He showed the bulge, so that's not entirely accurate. These people, they don't understand. You can't run an election based on a wedge issue that the majority of people, with all honesty, don't give a fuck about. They don't give a fuck about it, okay? Ocasio-Cortez ran on a platform of Medicare for all, they like to say. The guarantee of jobs for all people, and abolishing ICE, okay? Those are current event topics, not what you're talking about. So this is not helping. It is actually hurting the cause. It is actually causing people to desire someone like Ocasio-Cortez, because she, to be honest with you, I'm not a supporter of AIPAC. Let's see. Okay, I think I got a nice message from somebody, but I don't know if he wants me to talk about it on air. But good for you, and I hope that you're successful with whatever it is you're going to do. But look, there's an issue here where people don't understand what causes people, what motivates people to go out and vote. Mr. Wazo thinks, I think he probably showed more. They just haven't shown it. Well, thank you to the thank you to the press for now. I don't want to see his phone. He's in prison now, and he, by the way, I think he's going to get out not long from now. I don't think his sentence was very long. So I think that's it for now, because this topic is actually going to be segueing into what I'm going to talk about in the next stream, which should be starting very shortly. I think I'm going to take a break. But people should start thinking about it, okay? You're not going to win races by saying, oh, people are anti-Semites. You're not going to win races by saying, oh, this person is anti-Israel. You're also not going to win it by saying, fuck socialism. Because some people have no... fuck socialism is not an alternative. You need to start coming up with an actual belief system for people to get behind. And libertarianism and conservatism, it can't be just a party of no. We have to say to people, look, we believe in tax cuts. We believe in removing regulations that the FDA uses to strangle the healthcare industry. We believe in also decriminalizing things. We have to talk about creating a system of justice that's less dependent on how much you can afford for an attorney. Okay, how does that work? Well, that's called tort reform. Well, do Republicans ever talk about it? Does anybody talk about it? No. Drink some Robitussin between the streams. I don't have any Robitussin, goddammit. So, I think we're done for now. I want to thank you guys for coming and interacting. I'm glad that this time, I believe, let me know in the chat if you guys did get the notification. But I'm going to sign off, so please like the video, share the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment below if you haven't already.